Hello student, good morning. How are you all? I hope you are fine and healthy. Today we will study Oscar Wilde, The Selfish Giant. There is a wonderful story of selfish giant, and this chapter is an allegory type of chapter. Okay, in this chapter there is a giant and he had a beautiful garden. Now what will happen to his garden we will study. In this lesson, Selfish Giant had a beautiful garden, but he did not allow children to play in his garden. And in this way, winter Winter was everywhere in the garden. But one day he noticed that there was a hole, and from that hole the children enter, and the garden turned into beautiful garden again. After that, he loved the children. He played with the children. In this way, he spent all his life. One day, he helped a small boy, and he put the small boy in one of the branch. Okay. Later, what had happened? We will see it. Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. So every afternoon children return from the school and they used to go to the garden to play there, and it was giant's garden. It was a large lovely garden with soft green grass. So this is about the garden, description about the garden. So large garden was there, lovely garden was there, soft green grass was there. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars. So on that grass beautiful flowers were there like stars. So here flowers are compared with the stars, and there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in the autumn bore rich fruit. So it is about the spring season. When there is a spring season, 12 peach trees were there and ब्रोक आउट इंटू डेलिकेट ब्लोसम्स. तो बहुत ही पिंक और फूलों से चमक उठते हैं. जब ऑटम सीज़न आती है तब बोर रिच फ्रूट्स मतलब बोर मतलब उसको बहुत सारे फ्रूट्स मिलते हैं वो गार्डन में से. The birds sat on trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games in order to listen to them. And sometimes when the birds chirping so sweetly, the children forget about to play and they stopped to listen the sound of the chirping of the birds. How happy we are here, they cried to each other. They are so happy, and they shouted, how happy we are. Student, here you have to underline these lines. How happy we are. कितने खुश हैं हम. One day the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend. Okay, so when the children were playing there, at that time giant was not there because giant had been visited to his friend, the Cornish ogre. The Cornish ogre is एक UK में एक प्लेस है, वहाँ पर अपने फ्रेंड को मिलने गया था. And had stayed with him for 7 years. He had stayed there with his friend for 7 years. 7 सालों तक अपने फ्रेंड के साथ था. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. What are you doing here? He cried in a very gruff voice. So when he saw the children, he became furious. He became very angry, and the children ran away. When the children saw that the giant was very angry, the children ran away from there. See, you can see in the picture, the giant is there and the children who are running away from there. Okay, so my garden is my own garden, said the giant. Anyone can understand that? I will allow nobody to play in it but myself. He said that he would not allow anyone to play in his garden because it belongs to him. So he built a high wall all around it and put up a notice board. So surrounding the garden he built a high wall ताकि अंदर कोई आ ना सके. Okay, and he put a notice board, and on that notice board the notice was there. You can see it is written in a bold letter, ट्रेसपासर विल बी प्रोजेक्टेड, यानी कि यहाँ से जो पास होते हैं उसको यहाँ पर आना नहीं है, किसी कोई भी यहाँ पर आ नहीं सकता. He was a very selfish giant. The poor children had now nowhere to play, as there was not a beautiful garden there. So the children has to stay behind the door of their house. They tried to play on the road, but the road was very dusty and full of hard stone. So they tried to play on the road, but the road was dusty and hard stone, and they did not like it. They used to wander round high walls when their lessons were over and talks about the beautiful garden inside. How happy we were there, they said to each other. So in the afternoon they take around, वहाँ पर गार्डन जो वॉल थी वो पर अराउंड मतलब घूमते रहते थे एंड कहते थे हाउ हैप्पी वी वर. So when they were playing in the garden at that time, they cried, they shouted and said that how happy we are. Now they have no, they were not allowed to play in the garden, so they said that how happy we were. First of all they said that how happy we are, now they said that how happy we were. Then the spring came, and all over the country there were little blossom and little birds. Okay, then the spring season came. So spring season is the king of all the season, is it? Only in the garden of the selfish giant it was still winter, but there the winter spring season did not enter into the giant's garden. Still there was a winter season. The birds did not care to sing in it, as there were no children, and the birds were not singing and chirping in the giant's garden because the children were not there. और वैसे भी हम सबको पता है कि जो छोटे बच्चे होते हैं वो तो भगवान के एक देन होती है. And the trees forgot to blossom, so there was a winter season, so the trees were not blossom there. Once a beautiful flower put its head out from the grass, but when it saw the notice board, it was so sorry for the children that it slipped back into the ground again and went off to sleep. So once the flowers put his head out of the grass, but he saw the notice board. फूल ने भी जब बाहर निकाला अपना सिर, उसने देखा कि नोटिस बोर्ड था, एंड द चिल्ड्रंस वर नॉट देयर, सो ही वॉज वेरी सॉरी फॉर द चिल्ड्रन दैट दे हैव नो राइट टू प्ले देयर. सो ही वेंट बैक एंड वेंट ऑफ टू स्लीप. वो जो फ्लावर था वो भी वापस चला जाता है और सो जाता है, एज इट वॉज विंटर सीजन देयर. द ओनली पीपल हु वर प्लीज्ड वर द स्नो एंड द फ्रोस्ट. अब वहाँ पर कौन खुश था? सी स्टूडेंट इन दिस लेसन, the author, the writer had tried to give the non-living things to living creature. Like यहाँ पर देखिए लाइन में दिया है the only people who were pleased, सिर्फ वही लोग खुश थे और वो थे स्नो एंड फ्रोस्ट. एक्चुअली स्नो एंड फ्रोस्ट आर नॉट ह्यूमन बीइंग, राइट, बट हियर जो ऑथर है उसने स्नो और फ्रोस्ट को ह्यूमन बीइंग में बताया है. स्प्रिंग हैज़ फॉरगॉटन दिस गार्डन, they cried. Who cried? Snow and frost cried कि स्प्रिंग सीजन यहाँ पर आना भूल गया है. So we will live here all around the year round. So snow and frost said that कि वहाँ पर पूरे साल वो वहाँ पर रहेंगे. Snow covered up the grass with her great white cloak. Cloak means coat. So snow has covered like a white cloak the whole grass, and the frost painted all the trees silver, and frost covered all the trees with silver. Silver color, okay? कलर मतलब सिल्वर कलर का हो जाता है. Then they invited the north wind to stay with them. Snow and frost invited north wind. जो नॉर्थ विंड के ठंडे ठंडे पवन होते हैं, सो दे इन्वाइटेड नॉर्थ विंड एंड ही केम. कौन आ गया? नॉर्थ विंड. ही वॉज wrapped, WRAPPED, wrapped means cover. He wrapped in furs and he roared all day about the garden. So the north wind roar, जो ठंडी ठंडी पवन की जो आवाज़ आती है उनसे वो उसका पूरा गार्डन गूंज रहा था. एंड ब्लू द चिमनी पोट्स डाउन, एंड इन दिस वे ही डाउन द chimneys in the garden. This is a delightful sport, he said. We must ask Hale on a visit. So now they decided to invite Hale, H-A-I-L, Hale. These are, जो विंटर में होते हैं, north wind, snow, frost and hail that we generally find in winter season. So the hail came. अब hail भी आ गया. There was snow and frost was there. They invited north wind. North wind came. They invited hail, and hail had come. Every day for 3 hours he rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slats, and then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. He was dressed in grey, and his breath was like ice. So this is about हेल कि हेल आता है, फिर वो एक के एक बाद वो स्लेट को अपने ज़ोरदार पवन से तोड़ देता है और वो पूरे ग्रे, जैसे कि विंटर सीज़न में पूरा जो एटमॉस्फेयर है थोड़ा धुंधला सा हो जाता है. सो वो भी आ गया और पूरा वहाँ का एटमॉस्फेयर था वो पूरा ग्रे कलर का हो गया. स्नो था, नॉर्थ विंड था, फ्रोस्ट था, अब हेल भी था. इन दिस वे द होल garden, the giant's whole garden was destroyed. I can't understand why the spring is so late in the incoming, said the selfish giant as he sat at the window and looked out at his cold white garden. I hope there will be a change in the weather. So in this way there was winter season in the garden, and here giant was so sad, unhappy. He sat at the window and he was hoping for the spring season, and he could not understand why there was still there was winter there, and he was hoping for the good season. He was hoping for the spring season. But the spring never came, nor the summer. So neither spring nor summer came. The autumn gave golden fruit to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. In the other garden of the city, the fruits are having. The fruits were there, but in the selfish giant garden there was nothing. He is too selfish, she said. So it was always winter there, and the north wind and the hail and the frost and the snow danced about through the trees. The garden said that he is selfish, that is why she will not give anything to him. In this way these 4 people were dancing and enjoying there. Which 4 people? Yes, snow, frost, north wind and hail. These people, उसको people में यहाँ पर बताया गया है. They were happy and they were dancing and all about the and through the garden and through the trees. One morning the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard some lovely music. As he was lying awake, वो अपने बेड पर ऐसे ही जागता हुआ पड़ा था. It was morning time. Then he heard a lovely music there. It sounded so sweet to his ear that he thought it must be the king's musicians passing by. He thought that the king's musicians may be passing from there. It was really only a little linnet singing outside his window, but it was so long since he had heard a bird singing in his garden that it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. उसके लिए वो beautiful music in the world था, because linnet is a bird, singing bird जो होता है वो गा रहा था, but वो आवाज़ जो थी वो थोड़ी it was for a long time, so बहुत लंबे समय तक थी और वो आवाज़ उसके लिए ब्यूटीफुल म्यूज़िक इन द वर्ल्ड. देन द हेल स्टॉप्ड dancing over his head and the north wind ceased roaring. Now in this way हेल जो था वो स्टॉप हो गया. नॉर्थ विंड ऑल्सो सीज्ड मीन्स स्टॉप रोअरिंग. एंड अ डिलीशियस परफ्यूम केम टू हिम थ्रू द ओपन casement. So open casement means window that opens on hinges like a door. तो वहाँ से उसने सुना कि कुछ उसने देखा कि अच्छी सी खुशबू वहाँ से उसको आ रही थी. आई बिलीव द स्प्रिंग हैज़ केम एट लास्ट. सो Giant thought that the spring season has come, and he jumped out bed and looked out. In this way, he jumped from his bed and he looked out in the garden. Then he saw a most wonderful sight. Sight means seen. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in it means that enter in. So there was a small hole in the wall. एक जो wall थी उसमें एक hole हो गया था, and the children crept from that hole and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. Children enter into the garden and they were sitting on the branch of the trees. In every trees that he could see there was a little child. उसने देखा कि हर एक पेड़ पर बच्चा है. You can see in the picture it is given. Okay, the children are playing, and you can see far away in the corner the child is trying to climb a tree, and the trees were so glad to have the children. और जो थे they were glad means happy. The trees were happy. The children were returned and the children were sitting on its branches. So the trees were happy and they had covered themselves with blossom. So there were blossom मतलब बहुत ही अंकुरित हो गए थे वो, and were waving their arms gently above the children's head. और खुद बच्चों को वो अपने branch जो थी branches अपनी शाखाएं डालियाँ जो दे रहे थे. In this way the children can climb, okay, and they can enjoy. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight. Delight means happy. So birds were chirping there, twittering there. Twittering means chirping, and they were very happy. And the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. Also flower came out from the cave and took their heads from the grass, and the flowers were also happy. The trees were happy. The birds were happy. इट वॉज अ लवली सीन फॉर द जायंट. उसने देखा कि बहुत ही प्यारा सीन उसने देखा. ओनली इन कॉर्नर इट वॉज स्टिल विंटर. येस, यू कैन सी इन पिक्चर in the corner of the garden there was still winter. The tree is covered with snow, you can see, and the child is trying to climb a tree but he could not climb a tree. It was a farthest corner of the garden, and it was standing a little boy. The giant showed that there was a little boy and standing under the tree. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree. The boy was so small and he was unable to reach to the branch or unable to climb the tree, and he was wandering all around it. And that boy was wandering around it means आसपास घूम रहा था, and crying bitterly. He was crying hardly, बहुत ही जोर जोर से रो रहा था. The poor tree was still covered with frost and snow. You can see in the picture the tree is covered with snow and frost, and the north wind was blowing and roaring about it. Wind was there and roaring about it. Climb up, little boy, and said the tree. The tree told the little boy, climb, and it bent its branches down as low as it could. Even tree was trying to give him his branch as good as possible. He could try to give his branch to the boy, but the boy was too tiny, but the boy was too small that he could not climb or could not touch the branch of the tree. And the giant heart melted as he looked out. How selfish I have been, he said. नाउ जायंट्स हार्ट वॉज मेल्टिंग. उसका जो हृदय परिवर्तन हो रहा था. एंड ही सेड हिमसेल्फ दैट हाउ सेल्फिश ही वॉज. Now I know why the spring would not come here. Now he realized that why spring season could not visit his garden, why there was still winter there. Now he understood that I will put that poor little boy on the top of the tree, and then I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever. He thought that he will broke that wall that he built around the garden. वो सोचता है कि पूरे गार्डन के प्रति जो पूरे सराउंडिंग उसने जो वॉल बनाई थी उसको भी वो तोड़ देगा. Now he decided that he will उसने वो डिसाइड किया कि ही विल अलाउ द चिल्ड्रन टू प्ले इन हीज गार्डन, वो बच्चों को अलाउ करेगा कि उसके गार्डन में वो खेले, बिकॉज हिज हार्ट वॉज मेल्टेड, उसका जो हृदय था वो परिवर्तन हो गया था, पिघल गया था. ही वॉज रियली वेरी सॉरी फॉर वॉट ही हैड डन, एंड वॉट एवर ही हैड डन ही डिड नॉट अलाउ द चिल्ड्रन टू प्ले इन हीज गार्डन. ही बिल्ड द वॉल सराउंडेड हिज गार्डन. नाउ ही रियलाइज्ड हिज मिस्टेक. वो अपनी मिस्टेक को रियलाइज करता है, एंड ही वॉज वेरी रिग्रेट एंड वेरी सॉरी फॉर दैट. So he crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly, as he was in his room or in his house. So he opened the door and went out into the garden. He went there into the garden. But when the children saw him, they were so frightened that they all ran away, and the garden became winter again. When the children saw him, the children afraid and frightened with him, and as they were afraid, so they tried to run away, and they ran away. वहाँ से भाग जाते हैं. And there was winter season again in the giant's garden. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears that he did not see the giants coming. That child did not run because his eyes were filled with water, with tears. So he could not see the giant coming. वो देख नहीं पाया कि giant उसकी तरफ आ रहा है, क्योंकि उसकी आंखों में तो पानी भरा हुआ था. And the giant stole up behind him and took him gently in his hands and put him up into the tree. As you can see in the picture, giant is there, and he took the child in his arms. अपने छोटे बड़े बड़े हाथों में छोटे छोटे बच्चे को वो उठाता है. And he put that child into the tree. वो पेड़ में उस बच्चे को रख देता है. And the tree broke at once into blossom. As he put the child on into the tree blossom again. पूरा वो खिल उठता है. And the birds came and sang on it. Birds came and sang on that tree. And the little boy stretched out his two arms and flung them around the giant's neck and kissed him. जो बच्चा है उसको हक करता है. स्ट्रेच मतलब हाथ को फैलाना. And he kissed that giant with lots of love. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not weakened any longer. Weakened means poor or very, we can say that very जिसको कहते हैं rough or angry. उसने देखते हैं कि वो he is no more weakened. So they came running back, and with them came the spring. So children, as the children saw that the giant is no more weakened person, he is a gentleman and he is a polite man, the children came back into the garden. And in this way the spring season also returned into the giant's garden. It is your garden now, little children, said the giant, and he took a great axe and knocked down the wall. Now giant said the children that garden was children's garden. It was no more belonging to him. In this way he broke the wall that he built surround the garden. उसने वो दीवार को भी तोड़ दिया. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. The people who were going to the market, they had seen that the giant was playing with the children, and that garden was the most beautiful garden that they had ever seen means उसने अपनी लाइफ में पहली बार ऐसा beautiful garden देखा था, in which the giant was sitting and the children were playing. All day long they played. So children played there for the whole day. In the evening, as the evening came, they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. But in the evening, as the evening would be there, the children came to giant to say him goodbye. You can see in picture the giant is sitting on chair and the children are playing. But where is your little companion? He said. The boy I put into the tree. The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. So the giant asked about the little boy, कि वो आपका बेस्ट वो little companion था, वो कहाँ गया? He loved that child because that child hugged him and kissed him. बहुत सारा प्यार उसको वो बच्चे से मिला था. So he asked the children about that boy. We don't know, answered the children. Children said that they did not know about him. He has gone away. You must tell him to be sure and come tomorrow, said the giant. So giant told the children, he told the children कि वो बच्चे को बोलना कि वो गार्डन में खेलने के लिए आए. But the children said they did not know where he lived. The children replied that they did not know about that child, where he was living, and had never seen him before. उसने पहले भी कभी उसको देखा भी नहीं था. And the giant felt very sad. Giant जो होता है वो उदास हो जाता है. Every afternoon when school was over, the children came and played with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. But that child never come. छोटा बच्चा था वो कभी वापस आया ही नहीं. The giant was very kind to all the children. He was very kind for all the children, yet he longed means wished for his little friend, and he often spoke of him. अपने आप को हर बार वो कहते हैं, giant जो अपने आप को कहता है, how I would like to see him. He used to say, अपने आप को वो बताते ही रहते कि how would like to see him, कि मैं उसको कब देखूँगे या फिर मैं उसको कैसे देखूँ. किसको? वो छोटे से बच्चे को. Years went by. In this way, years and years passed, and the giant grew very old and feeble. Feeble means weak. जो एज की वजह से वीकनेस आ जाती है, that is feeble. So he grew very old and he became feeble. He could not play about anymore. So he sat in the huge armchair. He used to sit on armchair and watch the children at their games and admire his garden. He used to sit on armchair and he admired अपने garden की वो तारीफ करते थे. I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. वो ऐसे बोलता रहता था कि he loved and the flowers are beautiful, but he also said that the children are most beautiful flowers of all, कि बच्चे जैसा कोई भी खूबसूरत फूल इस दुनिया में नहीं है. One winter morning he looked out of his window as he was dressing. One early morning as he was dressing, he was doing his daily routine. He did not hate the winter now. It was winter, but he did not hate anymore, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep. He merely means only. He was assured that spring season is only sleeping. One day it will come, and that the flowers were resting. He assured that the flowers are sleeping and spring season sleeping too. Suddenly he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked. It certainly was a marvelous sight. He looked outside, and it was a marvelous sight for him. In the furthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely white blossom. He saw that in the garden or in the corner of the garden इट वॉज कवर विथ लवली वाइट ब्लॉसम की विंटर सीजन थी, फिर भी वो पेड़ जो है वो ब्लॉसम कर रहा था. इट्स ब्रांचेस वर गोल्डन, और जो ट्रीज की ब्रांचेस थी वो गोल्डन थी. एंड सिल्वर फ्रूट्स हंग डाउन फ्रॉम देम, एंड सिल्वर फ्रूट्स वर दे, दोज फ्रूट्स वर हैंगिंग डाउन. And underneath it stood the little boy he had loved, and that little boy whom he loved much. और एक बार ही उसने उसको देखा था, फिर कभी भी वो वापस नहीं आया था. Even he was awaiting for that child. That child was standing under that tree. Yes, you can see in picture the trees blossom, silver fruits are there. Downstairs rain, वो नीचे उतरकर वहाँ पर दौड़ कर जाता है. Downstairs ran the giant in great joy. He was so happy, and out into the garden he hastened. Hasten means quickly across the grass. बहुत जल्दी वहाँ पर दौड़ कर जाता है. Came near to the child. वो दौड़ कर वो बच्चे के पास पहुँचते हैं. He approached to that child, and when he came quite closer, his face grew red with anger, and he said, "Who hath dared to wound thee?" means who dared to give you wounds, for On palms of the child's hands were prints of two nails, and the prints of two nails were on the little feet. वो बच्चे के पाम्स में मतलब हथेलियों में नेल्स मतलब जो खिले होते हैं वो लगे हुए थे और फीट में भी थे. वी नो अबाउट द क्रिश्चियन. सो दिस चैप्टर इज़ ऑल्सो रिलेटेड टू क्रिश्चियनिटी कि जीसस को भी लोगों ने उसको क्रॉस किया था, राइट. उस पिलर पर उसको पूरा मार दिया था वहाँ पर उसको नेल्स के द्वारा. तो ये वाउंड्स उसने देखे तो वो एंग्री हो गए कि किसकी हिम्मत हुई तुझे ये वाउंड्स देने की, ये घाव देने की. हु हैथ डेयर टू वाउंड दी. इट मीन्स दिस, किसकी हिम्मत हुई कि तुझे घाव देने की. क्राइड द चाइल्ड, चिल्लाता है. टेल मी दैट आई मे टेक माई बिग स्वॉर्ड एंड स्ले हिम. मैं मेरी तलवार लेकर आऊँगा और उसको स्ले हिम मतलब मैं उसको किल मतलब स्ले मीन्स किल, मैं उसको मार दूंगा. Nay, answered the child. Nay means कोई नहीं. But these are the wounds of love. He said that those are not wounds of hate, but those are wounds of love. Who art thou? said the giant. Who art thou means who are you? तू कौन है? And the strange awe fell on him, and he knelt before the चाइल्ड. वो अपने घुटनों के बल पर वो बच्चे के पास बैठ जाते हैं. एंड द चाइल्ड स्माइल्ड ऑन जायंट एंड सेड टू हिम, यू लेट मी प्ले वंस इन योर गार्डन. टुडे यू शैल कम विथ मी टू माई गार्डन विच इज़ पैराडाइज. सो चाइल्ड सेड दैट वंस यू अलाउड मी इन योर गार्डन, नाउ आई अलाउ यू टू लिव इन माई गार्डन एंड माई गार्डन इज़ पैराडाइज. मतलब कि एक बार तूने आपने आपके गार्डन में खेलने दिया था, चलो मैं आज आपको मेरे गार्डन में लेकर जाता हूँ जो पैराडाइज है, स्वर्ग है. एंड व्हेन द चिल्ड्रन रेन इन द आफ्टरनून दे फाउंड द जायंट लाइंग डेड अंडर द ट्री ऑल कवर विथ वाइट ब्लॉसम. जब शाम को बच्चे वहाँ पर खेलने आते हैं इन एवरी आफ्टरनून, दे शो दैट द जायंट वॉज डेड. वो मर गया था अंडर दैट ट्री एंड हिज बॉडी वॉज कवर विथ वाइट ब्लॉसम. पूरे सफ़ेद फूलों से पूरी उसकी बॉडी जो है वो सफ़ेद फूलों से कवर हुई थी. सो दिस इज़ द स्टोरी ऑफ सेल्फिश जायंट एंड हिज गार्डन. सो स्टूडेंट, ऑन पेज नंबर 20 oral comprehension check there are question number 1 and 5, and oral comprehension check 2 there are question 1 and 5. So total 10 question and answer are there that I'm giving you in homework. Thank you and have a nice day.